Our lesson today is 8th grade 2.4 out of the Blue Big Ideas book. The objective today is students will learn how to graph equations that are written in standard form. The standards covered in this lesson are 8EE6. The page numbers out of the hardcover book are pages 68 through 73 and pages 37 through 40 out of the practice journal. We're going to start out with, first of all, going through a couple of practice problems out of our practice journal, and this is on page 37 of your practice journal. So you have the exact same thing on there, it's just yours is in black and white and mine is on a colored screen. The first example on page 37 says you sold a total of $16 worth of tickets to a school concert. You lost track of how many of each type of ticket you sold. So they give us an equation that says it's $4 per adult times the number of adult tickets plus $2 per child times the number of child tickets equals $16. It tells us let X represent the number of adult tickets and Y represent the number of child tickets. Write an equation that relates X and Y. So I'm going to go ahead and visually cover up what kind of the stuff that they just said. So here they said let's let X represent the number of adult tickets. So I'm going to go ahead and put an X in this spot. And we're going to let Y represent the child tickets. So here we'll put a Y. And now we're going to go ahead and write our equation. So the equation that I get from this, and I'm just going to work left to right on this little equation thing that they have written out there, is I have $4 per adult ticket, so X, plus $2 times our child tickets, so times Y, equals $16. So there's the equation that we're starting out with. This is what you call a standard equation. Standard equation where they're giving us an example of maybe a real life scenario and they're going to ask us to then go ahead and graph it. So our step that we're going to be doing in this lesson is working to get our standard equation, like this 4x plus 2y equals 16, into that y-intercept equation. Today, right now, what we're going to do is actually just understand why we would ever use something like this. So letter B in your book says copy and complete the table, which you already have the table there. So we're just going to actually fill in our table with the different types of combinations of tickets that we might sell. So the number of adult tickets, maybe we would sell, I don't know, maybe we sell 0 adult tickets. Okay, well then if we sell 0 adult tickets and we actually sold $16 worth of tickets, well, if we take 16 divided by 2, that would give us 8 child tickets that we could have sold to equal that $16. Okay, so then maybe we sell 1 adult ticket. So 1 adult ticket was 4 of the dollars. So that leaves me with $12 left over. And if I figure out how many times $2 would go into 12, that would give me 6 child tickets that I could buy. Okay, and that gives me a total of my $16 for the tickets. Okay, so maybe we do 2 adult tickets, which 2 times 4 would give us $8 spent, which is going to leave me with $8 left to spend on the child tickets. So 8 divided by $2 would give me 4 tickets that I could buy for the child tickets. Maybe we would buy 3 adult tickets, which 3 times 4 is $12. So that leaves me with $4 left over. And I can buy 2 child tickets with that. And then maybe I buy 4 adult tickets, which is $16. That means I don't have any money left over to buy any child tickets. So there's all of our possible combinations. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to plot the points from the table, and then we're going to explain the pattern that we see. So let's see. Our X's right here were our adult tickets. So we're going to label our little graph here. These are our adults. And these are our child tickets. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and plot these points. So the first scenario that we had was 0 adult tickets, but we could buy 8 child tickets. So we went over to 0 and up to 8. Our second scenario, we go over to 1, buy 1 adult ticket, but then we could buy 6 child tickets, so up to 6. Our third scenario, we could buy 2 adult tickets, and that would let us buy 4 child tickets. And then the next scenario is we could buy 3 adult tickets, but then we could only buy 2 child tickets, so over to 3, up to 2. And our last scenario is we could buy 4 adult tickets and stay at 0 for the child tickets. So there's our graph of our line of the different scenarios in which we could buy our tickets. So it says, describe the pattern formed by the point. So there's a couple different ways that you could describe this. Well, you could say the more child tickets you buy, the less adult tickets you can buy, or vice versa. The more adult tickets you can buy, the less less child tickets you can buy. And we do notice by looking at this that it is a decrease as we go from left to right. So this is it is a negative slope. It says, if you remember how many adult tickets you sold, can you determine how many child tickets you sold? Well, yes, we can. And we can see that from our graph. We were able to figure out when we were plotting out in our table, if we sold one adult ticket, that there was $12 left over and we could buy 6 more child tickets. So yes, we would be able to do that. Okay, there is a second scenario for you to work on your own on page 38 of your practice journal. So you can go through and work through that and then come see my answer key and you can check yours off of mine. But we're gonna go ahead and move on to the second part of working with standard equations. And that's just where they're gonna actually give us the equation. They're not gonna give us a story problem to work with. And they're gonna ask us to graph that equation. So the standard form of a linear equation is where we've got x's and y's on one side, and then we have an answer on the other side. And in this case, it's where a and b in our equation that's sitting up here is not going to be 0. So in other words, these will never be 0. Okay, that's what a standard equation is going to be. So our first step is not really a new step. It's something that we've been doing. We've done this in probably 2 or 3 different lessons. And that's where we're gonna work to solve for y. So we're gonna work to get y by itself. So our first step is, well, if I want this y to stay here, I have to get rid of anything that is on the same side of the equal sign by doing the opposite. So right now I have a minus 2x. We're gonna say plus 2x. Okay, so once again, this isn't new, this part isn't new. Okay, so then our next step is to get that 3 away from the y. So right now it's 3 times y, so we're gonna divide by 3 to get rid of it. Divide by 3, divide by 3. Okay, so this is what I have. Y equals negative 6 over 3 plus 2 over 3 with my x back here. So here's the part where it's important to understand. What's my slope and what's my y-intercept? Remember, our slope is always next to the x. Okay, if we notice, I know this blends in kind of a little bit here, but our slope is this m and it's sitting right next to the x. And take note, when I had to do some shifting there, my slope is not in that second position. So I'm actually gonna go through and rewrite my equation. Could I graph it without rewriting it? Now that everything's on one side of the equal sign, yes, I could, but I'm more comfortable with seeing it in the form that I'm used to having it. So if I rewrite this, we have y equals 2 over 3x, and that was positive, so I don't have to put a symbol in front. And then I'm gonna reduce this down. What would that reduce down to? Well, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and we have a negative sign, so it's gonna be minus 2. There's my y-intercept. Remember, our y-intercept will always be an integer. So we shouldn't have fractions or decimal numbers. So now I can go through and graph this out. So I'm gonna go to negative 2 and put my dot, and then follow my slope. My slope is a positive, so I'm gonna go up 2, 1, 2, and to the right 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm gonna go ahead and draw my line through that. So the stuff that we're doing today is really just combining previously learned lessons. It's not a whole lot of new. It's just combining previously learned things and understanding why would we ever have a standard equation? Well, because it's setting up a scenario, a real world scenario where we could go through and kind of figure out, you know, from looking at a line, maybe some of the different scenarios that we don't want to have to necessarily write out. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice another one of these. So the first step is to work to get that y by itself. Okay, so we'll start with one that's kind of easy here. So right now I have x plus y equals negative 2. So we want to get y by itself. I'm going to leave this one here. So we would do minus an x So if we rewrite it, we've got y equals, I want to shift my x up here. So it had a minus sign in front of it. So minus, that's a 1x. And then we still have a minus sign in front of our 2, so minus 2. Okay, so remember, when you reorganize the back half of your equation, you have to keep whatever symbol is in front of the number with it. Or in this case, that was in front of our x, that negative had to stay with the x. Okay, so now if I graph it, well, y-intercept is where we start, so we're going to go to -2. And then our slope is -1, and that would be over 1. So down 1 to the right 1. And then we would draw our line through that. Oops. So there's our slope of our line, which should extend all the way through. Okay? Let's try this one. We've got 2x plus y equals 5. So we want to get it to say y equals. First step, get rid of anything that's not directly attached to the y. So that has to stay, so we're going to get rid of this 2x. Right now it's a positive 2x, minus 2x, minus 2x. Okay, so now we have y equals 5 minus 2x. I don't have to do any dividing because y is already by itself, but I am going to rewrite it into the format that I'm used to seeing, and that is to have the x first. So I have to keep this negative with that 2. So negative 2x, and this is a positive 5, so plus 5. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and now graph it. So we go to positive 5, put our dot, and then our slope is -2, which that's 2 over 1. So down 2 to the right 1. Down 2 to the right 1. So here's our line. And I'm just going to do the dots on this one because it's easier for me on my smartboard than to have to move my line. So that's what my line should look like, only of course I would use a straight edge to complete it out. Okay. So like I said, this is just combining two things together that we've previously learned. Okay, so here's another one. So we've got -2/3 x plus y equals 0. We want to get that y by itself. So right now it's a -2/3 x. Well, the opposite is plus 2/3 x. So plus 2/3 x. So I have y equals, I want my x in the first position. So we're going to leave it as 2/3 x because it was positive. And then we have a 0 there. So I'm just going to write the 0 in here, but normally you would not see that in an equation. We would leave it off. But it helps me when I'm graphing it because I start here. So I start at that 0. And then I follow the slope. So it's positive. So I go up 2 and over 3. 1, 2, 3. Up 2, over 3. So that's what my line would look like. Only, of course, I would connect it with a straight edge. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys one to try out. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this one. Actually, let's do this one together. So I want to go through and I want to work to get my y by itself. This one's kind of complex. That's why I said let's do this one together. So if we go to get our y by itself, I'm going to have to leave this for now. So we're going to say plus 1/2 x to get rid of that. Plus 1/2 x. And this is the part why I say it's kind of confusing, because now to get that 2 away from the y, we would divide by 2, and then this part here is why I say it's confusing, divide by 2. Because I'm going to have to go through and think in terms of what is 1/2 divided by 2, or 1/2 times 1/2, because the reciprocal of 2. So I end up with y equals, if I think about this just for that visual sake, I'm going to write it up here. We would have 1/2 divided by 2, which remember then we keep change flip, so it would be 1/2 times 1/2, which would give us 1/4. So it's now going to be, this part right here is now 1/4 x. So I'm going to put that right here. And then this reduces down to 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that's positive. Now we can go through and graph that. So we start at a positive 3, and then we follow the slope of positive 1/4, so up 1/4. So our line would cut through like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write one out here that I feel that you should be able to do independently. So let's do 3x plus 2y equals -8. So I want you to go ahead and pause your video and work your way through to get y by itself and then graph this equation. So you've got 3x plus 2y equals -8. Go ahead and pause your video now. So you should have ended up with y equals -3/2x minus 4, and your graph should have looked something like mine. Obviously, you guys have graphs that are a little bit bigger, so you would have probably been able to go down and to the right, whereas I had to work backwards and go up and to the left to get that -3/2 in. That's pretty much it for the first part of this equation. Day 2, we'll be working with graphing linear equation standard form by substituting in for x and y and using our x and y intercepts. So good luck with this one.